Hi, welcome to the Open Case channel. Today we bring you a new case for you. I hope you enjoy it. Tonight's story, which you are about to hear, began after a revenge that, in the words of the subject himself, ended with a passion for the taste of human flesh. That feeling of dominance and control that is obtained after taking the life of another is what motivated this man, Joseph Roy Metheny, a morbidly obese subject, with a penetrating look and thick fractions, an intimidating smile, with a height of 6 feet 2 inches and more than 150 kilograms of weight. He mentioned in his statement, "The next time you are on the road and come across a hamburger stand you have never seen before, think hard about this story, as you never know who you may be eating." The following criminal story has as its protagonist Joseph Roy Metheny, who was born on March 2, 1955, in Baltimore, United States, in the bosom of a family of 6 children, where most of the time, they were neglected by their parents, since their progenitor had a problem of alcoholism and spent money on drinking, so their mother had to work hard to support them. At the age of 6 years, his father died in a car accident and the children passed to the care of his mother, who took over the reins of the family. Often he and his siblings were sent to live with other families in the foster care system, which allows children in situations of danger, abuse, and neglect to live in a safe place temporarily until it is determined that they can return to their biological parents, or if necessary, the family who is caring for them wants to adopt them. Joseph took refuge in food and began to eat uncontrollably, which caused him a serious obesity problem that was compensated as he grew older. At the age of 18, he stated that he joined the U.S. Army in the year 1973 and served in Germany. During his service, Joseph became addicted to drugs, notably changing his behavior, being this the beginning of many problems that would be to come. His mother began to notice the deterioration of her son, who became more and more distant from the family. Joseph was known by his friends as Tim or Little Tim, since he was 6 feet 4 inches tall and had a large build. His addiction led him little by little to follow the same example of his father and began to frequent bars, living with homeless people who had no home and those who improvised camps in South Baltimore. That is where he met a woman, whose name is unknown, with whom he would have his first child. After learning that he was going to be a father, he got a job in a company where everything went well, as he was considered an intelligent person, well-spoken and very polite. What few knew was that he had an addiction problem. It all began on the night of July 1994. Joseph was at work, as he worked driving a forklift, in the company Palex, which was dedicated to the sale and manufacture of pallets. That night he worked late and stayed overtime. At the end of his day he went home as he usually did. When he opened the door, he turned on the light and realized that the house was empty. There was neither his son of 6 years, nor his wife. She had taken everything and had abandoned him. When he opened the door, he turned on the light and realized that the house was empty. Neither his 6-year-old son nor his wife was there. She had taken everything and abandoned him. When he saw him in his home, he was furious, not so much for the loss of his wife, who was addicted to drugs and with whom he frequently fought. After a few days, he began to look for them everywhere, without success. It was not until 6 months later that some people told him that they had seen her on the other side of the city. After a few days, his ex-wife and her partner were arrested for consumption and possession of illicit substances, and the child was taken away for child abuse and neglect. Joseph could not do anything to get his son back, so he was filled with hatred towards his wife and her partner. He felt at one point that they should pay for what they had done to him, snatching his son, so he began to search for them both. As he found out that they had been set free, the only punishment was that they had taken the child from them, so she discovered that they were living under a bridge, with drug addicts and homeless people. So one day she decided to go looking for them, but to her misfortune, she did not manage to find them. However, he found two people lying on an old and dirty mattress. So when he saw them, he remembered the reason why they had taken his son from him and exploded in anger against them, depriving them of their lives with an axe. That same night he continued the search in nearby bridges. It is then where he observed that near where he had committed the murders, there were 2 women under the bridge, so he went to them and tried to get information about the whereabouts of his wife. One of them walked a few meters. It is there where he interrogated her to get information from her, but due to the influence of the substances, she did not reason and acted as if she did not know anything. When he did not get what he wanted, he began to beat her, then he abused her, and finally, he ended her life. Once he had finished with her, he then went after the next woman and did the same thing, but she said she didn't know who he was talking about, so he killed her. But when he was about to throw her into the bushes with the other girl, he noticed an old man fishing by the river who was looking at him, so he took a bottle of water. When the old man wanted to react, he received a series of blows that ended his life. Once he came to his senses and realized what he had done, he dragged the bodies of the victims to the side of the Patapsco River, in the city of Baltimore, in the state of Maryland, United States, and tried to hide them with stones. Then he washed himself in the river and tried to clean the place as much as he could to not leave any trace that night. He mentioned that he committed the 5 murders in approximately 7 hours. One night in 1994, he lured Katie and Magazine, 39 years old, with a criminal record to the factory. They were consuming illicit substances, and after she refused to be intimate with him, he grabbed her by the neck and deprived her of breathing until he murdered her. After the fact, he dug a shallow grave in a small forest behind the factory, where she went unnoticed and where she remained for 6 months, until Joseph tore her head off and threw her away. In the trash, the body remained there for some years. On August 2, 1995, the bodies of the homeless were discovered, which were identified as Randall Brewer and Randy Parker. Weeks later, Metheny was accused of both murders. Since that night, some people saw an overweight guy who was hanging around the bridges, so when investigating they found the whereabouts of the probable suspect, Joseph Metheny. He was denied bail and had to stay 18 months in jail in Baltimore City. After the trial lasted a week, he was released for lack of evidence, since it was established that the perpetrator was another homeless man. Upon his release, he went to his former job to ask his boss to return him to his job at the Palex Lumber Company in Baltimore. His boss agreed, since he considered him a good worker. But not only that, he also granted Joseph's request to stay in a small trailer he had inside the property, with the promise that he would watch the place. Since having been in prison he had nowhere to stay, so he gave him the keys to the whole place, trusting his goodwill. But what he did not know was that Joseph had other plans in mind, since the company was located in a dead-end street, isolated from the road, a perfect place to commit his fantasies. In November 1996, he lured Kimberly Line Spicer, whom he stabbed to death. After she resisted having intimacy with him, his body he buried inside the factory. It is at this precise moment where he mentioned that he cut the meat of his victim and put it in some tuppers to then place them in the refrigerator. During that week he put a small hamburger stand, where he assured that he mixed pork and beef with human meat and that nobody could notice the difference in taste. He even mentioned that many people told him that the hamburgers were the best they had ever tasted. He added that everything was going well until he ran out of special meat. On December 8, 1996, he took his new victim by the name of Rita Kemper. He mentioned that they shared drugs for quite a while inside the trailer, until he tried to tear her clothes off. She refused to be intimate with him, and in desperation she started screaming. But there was no one to help her, so in an oversight, she ran out of the trailer. Joseph went after her and dragged her back. He told her he was going to murder her, so as best he could, she managed to get away again. She ran to a wire fence, which had spikes on the top, but that was no deterrent for her to jump. She ran towards the road and a guy in a pickup truck stopped when he saw her. He took her to a nearby gas station where the police were called. Joseph picked up his clothes as he knew they would soon be coming for him, but as he got out of the trailer, one of the officers was already there. This one told him to get down on the ground, so they took him into custody and started questioning him. As expected, he denied all the accusations for which he had been arrested. One of them is that the girl mentioned. He immediately denied such words, adding that he did everything with her consent, so they let him go free. Seeing that perhaps the police could come to the place to verify that everything was all right, Joseph asked a friend to help him dig up Kimberly's body, which was still inside the factory. It is then that on December 15, 1996, his friend denounces him to the authorities, arguing that Joseph asked him to help him move the body of a woman he had buried on the side of the trailer. When he went to the place, the police arrested him again and even arrested the owner of the business for alleged complicity. They then asked Joseph to tell them where he had buried Kimberly. He gave them the exact location, and upon digging they came across the body of a woman. So that same day, once the interrogations began, he confessed to other crimes, among which were the previous victim, Katie and Magazine. So he led the police to the place where he had buried her. So they found a shallow grave, where he had buried her remains. Much of the skull was missing, but they were able to identify the victim through her dental records. Evidently, they corresponded to Katie, but days later, he claimed to be a serial killer and that he had committed 13 murders. According to him, he threw the bodies into the Patapsco River and that they had never been found. He even claimed that most of his victims had been cut into parts and that he had kept the meat to eat it later. Later he came up with the idea of setting up a food stand. At first the statements were shocking, but as the days went by, the veracity of his words began to be questioned, since every day he was interrogated in a small room, as the investigators wanted to clarify and close many unsolved cases. Trying to find out what he had done, he was taken out of jail every day and taken from one place to another. so that he would tell the investigators where he had dumped the bodies. At this point, the detectives did not know if Joseph was telling them the truth or if he was just delirious. Since there was a great stability in what he was saying, it sounded too fantastic to be true. The main problem of investigating Joseph Metheny is that he was also a liar and had the ability to create stories while telling everything. In 1997, he was tried for the case of Rita Kemper, the last victim who managed to escape and was sentenced to 50 years in prison for attempting to kidnap and abuse her. In 1998, he pleaded guilty to murdering Kathy Magazine, but on July 14, 2000 he was sentenced to life imprisonment without parole. No one understood if Joseph was lying for pleasure, or if his mind was so unbalanced that he confessed to past crimes. No evidence was ever found of the crimes he supposedly committed, nor was it proven if he actually opened his meat stand to sell the bodies of his victims. Finally, he mentioned, "The words 'I am sorry' will never come out of my mouth, because they would be a lie. I am more than willing to give my life for what I have done so that God can judge me and can send me to hell for eternity. I simply enjoyed it." On Saturday, August 5, 2017, he was mysteriously found dead in his cell around 3 p.m. at the Western Correctional Institution in Cumberland, Maryland, of unknown causes at the age of 62. This case is a clear example that not everything that murderers confess is true, as many tend to claim crimes they did not commit, with the sole purpose of being important and recognized. Do not forget to subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell. I hope you liked the video. If so, do not hesitate to subscribe and leave your opinion in the comments on the story.